effectively used to manage these water resources in a sustainable way. So coming to the application areas of remote sensing and GIS in sustainable water resources management, few of the areas we'll be discussing where remote sensing and GIS has been used in an efficient way to manage these resources. So first of all, we will be discussing in the areas in watershed management, urban planning activities, rainfall runoff modeling, in irrigation management, in flood management, environmental monitoring, and in groundwater studies, how these tools are effectively used to manage our water resources. So first of all, we'll be discussing about the watershed management. So there are a variety of inputs that are generally required for any watershed management project. So one of these inputs is your water resources mapping. Means we need to see, we need to map, we need to locate the water resources that we are working with. So that means it is estimation of watershed physiographic parameters, like how the spread has been here. It is being shown a stretch of an watershed at different wavelengths. So this is the same river. I would like to bring to your notice that this is the stretch of the same river, but the only difference between all these four figures is this has been taken at different wavelength bands. The wavelength bands we have discussed in the previous lecture, that how the material properties or how the reflectance values of any earth feature will vary with respect to its wavelength. So now the same thing has been captured in this wavelength band. This is B1 band, where your wavelength lambda varies from 0.45 to 0.5. So basically this we call it as blue band. Here B2 is 0.5 to 0.6 micrometer. This is your generally green band, and this B3 in the wavelength varies from 0.6 to 0.7 micrometer. That is your red band. So basically this represents first one blue band, this is your green band, and this is your red band. And the last one is your infrared band, NIR band or near infrared band, where the wavelength varies from 1.55 micrometer to 1.75 micrometer. So the point of discussion is here is you can see the stretch of river is clearly visible in near infrared region in the fourth figure, whereas in all the first figures, whether it is blue band or green band or red band, that is in the band B1 or B2 or B3, these pictures are not clear. So why it is so? The same thing, it is being captured in different wavelengths. So as we know that these features, any land feature will have different characteristics. It will behave differently with respect to different wavelengths. Now in the blue band, most of the energy is being reflected. Similarly, in B1, B2, and B3, in the blue, green, and red band, all the energy has been reflected. But in inner band, this energy by the water body is being absorbed. That is why it is giving a very dark tone. You can see the black stretches of this water set. So thereby you can distinguish between a water body and other land use features, whereas this is not possible in these wavelength bands. Whether you talk about B1, blue band, green band, or red band, it is not distinguishable at all, whether it is a water body or any other type of feature. But in near infrared band, in B5 band, you can clearly distinguish between a water body and its surrounding land use type. So the point of discussion here is you can take the help of different wavelengths, knowing the characteristics of any land use feature. So you know that water body absorbs most of the energy in near infrared band. This shows the example, the final figure, the last figure. It shows that the maximum energy is being absorbed by NIR band, where your wavelength is 1.55 to 1.75 micrometer. Now, since all the energy is being absorbed, there is a very little energy that will be reflected and it will be sensed by the sensor. So that is why there is a dark tone in this feature that is captured by the sensor that is mounted in a satellite. So here, to take the advantage of this point that water absorbs most of the NR band energy. So we take help that we go for analysis of water bodies by taking the help of NR band mostly. So you can see here, you can visualize that all other bands, whether blue, green or red bands, they are not able to give proper distinction between water body or any other type of land use. Whereas in NR band, this distinction is proper. So this is how you can use remote sensing tool for water resources mapping. You can map it, whether it is a stretch of river, whether it is ocean, whether it is a pond or lake. You can very well map it. You can locate it. You can demarcate it by the help of remote sensing, taking of course the suitable wavelength band of remote sensing. So apart from this mapping, there would be other physiographic parameters also that can be estimated by the use of remote sensing, like your area, your length, how much it is stressed. So all these physiographic parameters can be estimated by the use of this sort of applications. So now coming to the second one, that is estimation of land use, land cover information. So many a time we need for watershed management or for other water resources management, many a time we need the land use, land cover information. So in the previous lecture also we have discussed something about this land use, land cover information. Land use, land cover is nothing but a particular region in a particular time, how much area is occupied by which type of land feature. Okay, that is your land use or land cover information. Means how that land is being used for that particular time period. So it may be let's consider about Rourkela. This particular slide shows the land use, land cover information analysis with respect to different years, starting from 2002, 2003, 9, 10, and 11. So how gradually Rourkela city is growing. Suppose somebody is interested in that, because in many of the water resources projects, you need to identify how the growth is taking place for a particular region, how this urbanization is taking place, because urbanization is the main cause of all these water resources problems. The water resources being exhausted, it is being overexploited, it is there is more demand, there is less supply. So all these are the prime cause of all these problems is your population increase or urbanization. So many times you need to analyze those things so that you can take proper steps to manage these resources. So if you talk about land use, land cover information, you can identify different land use types. Like say, suppose in Rourkela we are having forest land, we are having built-up land. Built-up means these impervious areas, that is your residential area, the concrete portions where your infiltration will not occur. Or you can have agricultural land, you can have water bodies, you can have barren land. So this shows the different type of land uses or land covers in Rourkela city at a particular year. So suppose I know these corresponding land use classes for the year 2002. And the analysis of by the analysis of the satellite image for the year 2003, I will get to know the same areas, but then I can know what are the changes with respect to these different land use covers. Similarly, in the year 2009 or subsequent years 10, 11, 12, 15, 20, 20, and up till now, we can know how these land use changes can increase or decrease, how the change has been taken place. So that way you can get to know, you will have some idea about the growth of urbanization or growth trend of that city or area. So that will help you properly manage your water resources in future days. So if you see, this has been a study taken up by us for Rourkela city in the year 2002, 2003, and 9 up to 2011. We have found out that this urbanization, this basically shows the urban sprawl, how the urbanization is growing from year to year. So from 2002, it was in 2002 it was 20%, and in 11 it has become up to almost 27%. So how this urbanization is growing. So in the next slide, we'll see how the trend of urbanization has taken place from 2002 to 2011. If you see those organizations, if you plot and you fit the best curve, then you will get that the route velocity is found to grow exponentially, as the equation shows. It is an exponential equation with a square value of 0.96. So you can show that route velocity is growing exponentially, has been growing exponentially from 2002 to 2000, say 11 or something. And what is the usefulness of this type of study? Why somebody should know the growth trend of a particular city? Because suppose you are going to plan some water resources structures for coming 2030. So by knowing the trend curve, if you simply extrapolate this curve, you can of course estimate, you can very well estimate what would be the built up area percentage at the year 2030. So by knowing that, you can properly estimate, or you can properly plan your further activities. Or so suppose you are going to design a storage tank, you are going to plan for other water resources activities. So that will play a major role how the city is will show its growth trend in coming days. So that way, this sort of studies would be helpful, and this can be very well explained, or this can be very well analyzed by your remote sensing data. So next is your watershed prioritization. Now we are being a developing country, we are having always the resources limited. So if your resources are limited, then you need to prioritize, or you need to rank the areas who will get the first attention for application of certain activity. Suppose your fund is minimum, you want to address some issue by providing this facility to some of the areas. Then how to choose which are the areas which should get this facility at the first basis. So that's we call it as prioritization. Means we need to prioritize, we need to give the ranks area wise, which should be rank 1, so that if the facility comes, it will get the first priority to get that facility. That we call it prioritization of watersheds. So here ranking of watersheds or sub-watersheds takes place on the basis of some morphometric parameters like your stream order, stream length, some other bifurcation ratio, drainage density. All these physiographic parameters, as we discussed in the previous class, those can be estimated by application of GIS. If you remember, we discussed yesterday about the stream network, stream length. Then once you know that, you will have drainage density and all other morphometric parameters you can calculate. So based on those morphometric parameters, you can prioritize, you can rank these watersheds, and you can decide which are the watersheds or sub-watersheds which should get the facility at the first basis. So that way you can select some areas. This is one of the applications of remote sensing. Now, apart from these, other applications in water resources management are estimation of hydrological and meteorological variables like your rainfall, evapotranspiration. You might have heard that rainfall these days can be predicted by satellite images. So how this is being done? We are having some clouds. Cloud contains your water. So through microwave remote sensing, they have the capability to penetrate the clouds. So once they penetrate the cloud, they can have an estimate of what is the water content of a certain cloud. So though they are lying in a more higher standard of remote sensing, but studies are still going on how to predict by knowing the cloud water content of the clouds, how we can predict the expected rainfall that is going to happen for a particular area. Then it can also have soil moisture studies, how it can predict the moisture content of the soil. So all remote sensing is all about the reflectance values, isn't it? How much energy is getting reflected from the surface and is being captured by your sensor. That is nothing but your remote sensing. So talk about, if you think about a dry soil and a wet soil, what is the difference between a dry soil and wet soil? Dry soil doesn't have moisture, whereas your wet soil is having soil and moisture. So now based on the only soil and water, the properties of these will vary. Now, wet soil will definitely will have less reflectance value than a dry soil. Dry soil will reflect more energy, whereas wet soil will reflect less energy. So you will have a reflectance value difference between a wet soil and dry soil. So based on these basic things, there are further studies so that soil moisture can be predicted. Similarly, your water conservation and rainwater harvesting. You know what is rainwater harvesting? You rainwater is harvested back and it is forced or it is made to infiltrate the under soil to enrich the groundwater resources so that in our time of need we can get it back. So that is your rainwater harvesting. But then this problem of putting rainwater harvesting structure is largely a function of many things like your land use, your land cover, soil type, hydrology, socioeconomic factors. There are so many things. There are so many factors that govern the location of rainwater harvesting structures. So once you have a large pool of data, here GIS plays a major role. So you can work in the GIS environment, you can have a pool of data, you can compare, you can analyze, you can infer some information, you can observe something, then you can at last you can conclude something that this would be the best position of or this would be the best location for a rainwater harvesting structure. So this way remote sensing and GIS helps in many of the water sources applications. Now coming to rainfall runoff modeling. So rainfall runoff modeling is the process by which runoff is simulated by your mathematical models. There exists a variety of mathematical models that need a quite diversified inputs. Okay. So once you give inputs to these models, they will predict the runoff. So what is the runoff? This is nothing but stream flow. So once, suppose at a particular location of a river, I want to know what would be the expected volume of water coming in that point at any point of time. So how can I do that? I can model it. The input being the rainfall, how this rainfall is going to convert into the runoff and how much stream flow I should get in that river point or that river stream. So that is called your rainfall runoff model. And there are mathematical models by which we can predict this runoff. And for running of these mathematical models, we need to have some inputs. So what are these inputs? We have already discussed in the last lecture. There would be DM, there would be stream network, there would be watershed delineation, and at best there would be like your land use, land cover information that we can have it. We can create it by using your supervised or unsupervised classification schemes. There would be soil map. All these are inputs to a particular mathematical model to estimate the runoff, which is of significant importance for any type of planning activities in water resources. So now once you have this land use, land cover information, or once you have the soil map for any region, this shows only for a Kosi River basin, that is in Bihar. But this sort of study can be conducted for any type, any river. So that so as to have an idea about the possible stream flow at a particular location. So these are the various inputs which can be achieved, which can be estimated, which can be obtained by use of remote sensing and GIS tools. So once you, by the use of remote sensing and GIS tool, once you have these inputs, put it into the mathematical model to estimate or to simulate the runoff. So this shows a SWAT, soil water assessment tool, is a mathematical model to simulate the runoff. This shows a stream flow or runoff generated from catchments for different planning and management activities. So once you give these inputs, the models like SWAT are ready to simulate the runoff, which you can use for your further activities. This is just an example. Then coming to your remote sensing in irrigation management. Now this is a very important application of water resources engineering, by which we get the maximum use of remote sensing inputs. So there are basically, let me fundamentally tell you that as we have discussed in the previous discussions also, so depending on the characteristics of a land feature, whether it is vegetation, whether it is building, whether it is water body, the reflectance value will vary. So now, what is the reflectance value from a building? Will not be definitely same as the reflectance value from a tree. Similarly, you can see from this value, this is the reflectance or this is the wavelength. So with respect to different wavelength, the reflectance values will be different. Now, this is the reflectance for soil, this problem. This is the reflectance value for a green vegetation. This is the reflectance for water. So now all of them are different. So due to the difference of these reflectance values only, we are able to identify or we are able to distinguish between which is a soil, which is green vegetation, and which is water. And again, all these land features, they behave differently with respect to different wavelengths. Now, see the green vegetation. The reflectance is high at NIR region, 0.72 onwards, whereas it is low in other wavelength bands. So that is how there are, it's a characteristic. The reflectance value is a function of both. That is, its nature of the land feature as well as the wavelength. So as it can be distinguished that there would be variable or different reflectance values for a soil or green vegetation or water body, or it is a other type of land. Similarly, for there would be a variation in reflectance values for different type of crops as well. For example, let me tell you that if you talk about a crop or a sugarcane crop, I mean paddy or sugarcane. So both of them are having different type of leaf structures, isn't it? And they are having different type of chlorophyll content. So now due to these differences, a paddy leaf will reflect differently than a sugarcane leaf. So since this difference in reflectance values will be there, so there would be a distinction between crop type. That is, by the help of this remote sensing imagery analysis, you can able to identify which are paddy fields, which are sugarcane fields, which are cotton fields, or any other type of crop. Okay, so that is how you can identify the crop. That is called crop identification. So once you identify the crop, you can estimate the area on which they are grown or sown. So this much acreage of paddy is grown, or this much acre of sugarcane is grown. So that is how you can know the acreage estimation. Okay, so you can identify the crop as well as you can estimate how much area is grown by, is sown by that crop. And again, each crop shows different spectral response in different wavelength bands. Like if you see, this shows the same. This green line is the reflectance value for a grass. This is for field tree. This is for a dry yellow grass. So you see, all these type of vegetation, they behave differently with respect to different wavelengths. So thereby we can distinguish between whether it is a grass or it is a dry yellow grassland. So because you see, this is a green grass. That is why the chlorophyll content is more. So since your chlorophyll content is more, your reflectance value is more. But where your dry yellow grass, that means a stressed vegetation, where the vegetation has been diseased, or it's not green, it's not healthy, it is stressed. So there your chlorophyll content will be less. So your reflectance value will be less. So here, if you talk about NIR band, you can distinguish between a grass and a yellow grass. So you can distinguish between different type of crops as well as its acre. I mean the area for which it has been sown. Now also the crop condition and crop yield can be estimated by the use of remote sensing. So in the previous example also I told, if you talk about near infrared region, this particular green line, this shows the reflectance for a healthy vegetation where the vegetation is having full of chlorophyll pigments. Whereas this brown line in the near infrared region also, this shows a lower reflectance value than the healthy vegetation. So you can distinguish between a healthy vegetation and a stressed or what is that, diseased vegetation. So definitely in a healthy vegetation you will have the productivity or yield more than a diseased vegetation. So there are certain yield models. Okay, there are some yield models that are there. They are also mathematical models where you need to give this as input so as to predict how much yield will be there. So that is how with remote sensing we can identify crop, we can know what is the area that is sown, and we can estimate the yield for a particular season. So there are different applications also. This shows a crop identification and crop yield for Haryana for certain year. You see there are different type of crops that are grown, and very well with the help of remote sensing we can identify these crop types and their areas. This is the yield, how much yield they should be for that particular year. Okay, so this type of study is very well possible with respect to with help of remote sensing tools. Now coming to flood management, this particular figure shows. Now I was telling in the last discussion also, this repeatability is the greatest advantage of remote sensing. That is, for a particular area, you can get to know different images at different time periods. So this particular image shows the Orissa 99 cyclone, super cyclone. This is a particular area on the date 11th October 99, and this shows the image of the same area on a different date, post cyclone, on 2nd November 99. You see the differences. So now this is a raw image. There was no cyclone, and after the cyclone has passed, you see these black lines. For NIR band, these black lines are nothing but the water. So now this region here you will find no water, whereas if you compare this region after your post cyclone effects, you will find water somewhere, sand deposit or some devastations you may identify after your disaster. So this set of study help somebody to plan further that these are the vulnerable areas, these are the areas or regions that are at risk, so that special measures can be taken up at these regions to manage the flooding. Similarly, if you talk about urban flooding, this was the urban flooding in Guwahati for 100 years of flood. We have modeled it for 100 years return period flood. We have estimated how much flood depth will be and how much it will spread. So we have modeled it. You can see the flood depth was maximum up to 0.94 meter. Means up to 1 meter it will go in the darkest lines here at the foothills of some hilly areas. You will find maximum water depth of 1 meter that is accumulated for 100 years of flood. So this set of activities help the planning authorities to decide which are the risk-prone areas for a particular type of flood, and how they can be managed, and how this map has been prepared with the help of remote sensing and GIS. So as I told, there will be rainfall runoff modeling. There will be different type of inputs required for this sort of mathematical models that can be very well obtained by use of remote sensing. Then this is the final outcome. How to get the urban flooding spread for a particular area. Now coming to river studies or morphology or bank erosion. This shows the Brahmaputra River in the year 1997. If you see the red marks are the river outline for the year 1997. And it was initially in the year 1990, it was within these blue lines, that is in 1990 it was here. Then gradually the river shifted to the red region in 1997. So within 7 years you see how the river has shifted for a particular stretch. So with temporal analysis of satellite imageries at a particular stretch, you can get the idea about this sort of changes which may affect your planning activities. Now you would say how this is going to affect our planning activities. Okay, so let me tell you, suppose you are planning based on the 1990 location of this river. Suppose you are planning a bridge here across these blue lines. Okay, so now in 7 years the river has got shifted to this. Okay, so how to what is the use of this bridge now which you have constructed at this point? So then before you go to construct any hydraulic structure or any type of structure across your river, you need to analyze what is the status of the river. whether it is in equilibrium or it has not attained an equilibrium yet. It is still shifting its course. So now this can be achieved by your remote sensing tools, where you can very well judge. Suppose you will take frequent imageries of the same portion, and gradually by studying all these figures, all these images, you will be able to assess the behavior of this river, so that further planning activities can be decided. So this is one of the examples how you can manage these water resources. Then coming to environmental monitoring, so water quality parameters are estimated by measuring changes in the optical properties of water caused by the presence of different contaminants like potability, temperature, chlorophyll. So all these BOD, COD, dissolved oxygen, total solid, bacteria, all these. So at this point, let me tell you, the way I told about dry soil and wet soil, their reflectance values will be different. Now dry soil will be reflecting more, and wet soil, due to the presence of water, it will absorb more energy, and it will give back, reflect less energy. So similarly, pure water and water mixed with any impurity. Now pure water will reflect high energy, whereas if the water is mixed with certain type of impurities like turbidity, or it is hot temperature, chlorophyll, or it is BOD, COD, any sort of impurities, if it is mixed with water, definitely it will affect the reflectance properties. So by the difference of those reflectance properties, we get to know so what are the impurities of that water, whether it is containing BOD, if it is containing BOD, how much it is. So we can quantify. Being at a remote place also, by the analysis of these imageries, we can have the idea about these pollutants, or the contents of these pollutants. So for this set of applications, your visible and near infrared portions of electromagnetic radiation are the most useful bands. So now these useful bands, they are taken into some empirical equations, or they are further analyzed to get the idea about these contents. Now this shows the empirical equation used for estimation of pollutants is of the form. If the equation we take it as y equal to a plus bx, where this is an empirical equation for chlorophyll estimation. So here chlorophyll of log 10 of chlorophyll is equal to a plus b log g. So where g is your this ratio r2 square divided by r1 r3. So r1 r2 r3 are radiances or reflectance values at different wavelengths at 0.46 micrometer, 0.49 micrometer, and 0.52 micrometer. This is r1, r2, and r3. And a and b are empirical constants derived from some site measurements. So once you have all these values, if you put in this equation, you will get to know what is the chlorophyll content. So this shows a sample picture of chlorophyll concentration estimated in the off coast of California in the year 2002. So you can see here the bright red color, it shows the higher concentration of chlorophyll, and the blue colors, they are low concentration. So this chlorophyll concentration can be of this extent also, and this is all it is obtained from the satellite imagery. Not only you will visualize the concentrations, but also you can quantify by use of certain numerical empirical equations of this sort. Then you can quantify this, what is the chlorophyll content. So this set of application is also, there are similar application to BOD, COD, dissolved oxygen, total solid, all this sort of application you can get. You can quantify, you can estimate what are the different pollutants that are present in water, and up to what extent they are present. Then coming to temperature. So variation of temperature. So this is a possible application of thermal remote sensing or far infrared remote sensing. So this shows the thermal refugee created by discharge of cold tributary into the main river system. You see, this is a river system. And possibly there is a plant here, okay, and this is discharging pollutants to this river. Here you can see this is the thermal image where the cold water, this cold water is demarcated as black lines, and this is the normal water. So this sort of application you can find the pollution, the extent of pollution you can notice in the river system, and you can identify which is the source of pollution. Suppose a plant is there, so you can you can penalize that plant that you are polluting our river system. This is the proof, and you can estimate the concentration how much it is being polluted, and so that you can restrict on these environmental pollutions also. So this is a possible application of remote sensing, and how you can sustainably manage the water quality here in this system, because this river is coming downwards. It is the source of your all sort of applications. Let's say it is water supply, it's drinking water supply, or any sort of water supply you are giving. So now it is polluted, it's going to affect your quality of water. So that way you can analyze it. And coming to the last part of application, that is your groundwater potential zones mapping. So there are different factors like your geology, geomorphology, soils, land use, land cover. They control the occurrence and movement of groundwater. Now, where the groundwater will be present or it will not be present, that can be made possible with respect to remote sensing also. So for this type of study, there will be required preparing thematic maps or thematic layers for different themes. As I told in the last discussions also, there will be different themes for a particular area. There will be different maps corresponding to different themes. That is, one is geomorphology map, soil map, land use, land cover map for the same area. And all put together, if you analyze them, then there are strategies that you have to plan from possible management of these resources. So these layers may be combined with other information such as drainage density, slope, and soil types in a GIS environment. And there will be logical conditions that define the groundwater potential were evaluated using these thematic layers. So of course, this require a higher degree of higher standard of study to pursue this sort of application. Now, for this groundwater potential mapping, you need to have different type of data. You need to have topographic map in terms of your, this is nothing but your DM. You need to have remote sensing data like your geomorphological map, geological map, surface water body map, soil map. You need to have field data like your groundwater depths before monsoon and post monsoon. You need to have rainfall data, you need to have drainage map, slope map. So all these type of data you can work in a GIS environment. To generate the classification of thematic layers, you generate it and then classify it. There are certain weight assignments to themes and their features. Means weight assignment means to which factor you will be giving more weightage. That means out of these parameters, which are given more credit to potential groundwater occurrence. So which factor is more logical? Like suppose you are telling that somewhere the soil is sandy. So there is more probability that in that sandy soil, occurrence of groundwater will be more than that of a clay soil or other type of soil. So this sort of logical conditioning someone need to develop and to for weight assignment to this type of thematic layers. Now, once you give assignments with assigned to different themes, then integration of these thematic layers, and then finally groundwater potential mapping is done. So this shows different themes. So we have conducted a study for watershed in Maharashtra. So this shows the slope map of that district. This is the drainage density map. This is the soil map, geomorphology map. This is geological map. Then groundwater depth map before monsoon, post monsoon, and this is net groundwater recharge map. So now all these maps, as we discussed earlier, also this can be developed by applying your GIS tools. Of course, some of the data they will be acquired by the use of remote sensing, and some by field study, and all of them will be integrated in GIS environment to conduct this type of study. So that at the final stage, we will be having this set of map that shows the groundwater potential map of that area. So now from this legend you can see the groundwater potential classes. Poor, red means poor, means in this area there is less possibility to get groundwater. Whereas if you talk about this light green portions, these are the excellent groundwater potential areas where there is maximum possibility to get groundwater occurrence at those locations. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll be happy to take questions if something is there. If there is some questions, sorry that I could not continue after long because I have other commitments also.
Thank you, ma'am. Very informative session it was.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can we know runoff value from any catchment area by the help of remote sensing?
Yes, remote sensing helps in actually preparing some input data set that are required for your mathematical model. Runoff simulation can be done by any mathematical model, but then for working of this mathematical model, you need to have certain variety of inputs. Those inputs only can be prepared by the help of this remote sensing. And once you have those inputs, you put it in the mathematical model to simulate the runoff.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, is there any application of remote sensing in case of soil exploration?
Soil exploration also is there, but the limitation of this study is the depth is not much. Only a surface, some few centimeters of topsoil, it will be able to take because of the microwave remote sensing. It has the capability to penetrate into the subsoil, but not up to much depth. It has the only depth limitation. So that is how, if you talk about more depth of soil quality, then it will not be possible. Only surface soil of certain thickness that can be assessed.
Ma'am, for input, which data we require
Which
in
input?
mathematical modeling? Uh,
Which input you are
for,
talking about?
for
Rain,
runoff
Rainfall
estimation.
runoff model you I showed. No? There would be land use, land cover, there would be soil type, there would be land use, land cover, the mostly important type that you can create in remote sensing.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any other query? Okay, fine. Then, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with all of you. Thank you so much. So, may I leave the meeting now? Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.